And this is, I don't know, a quarter to a half of a mile away, quite some distance. And the structure is built of steel beams and reinforced concrete. You will find his letter, I'm not going to read it to you, at the end of tab 17. And I urge you to take a look at that. So for all of those reasons, this is not a good comparison either. So if we take the averages of these good comparisons we've got an average of 1,167 feet separating residential developments, new residential developments, I guess, from quarry sites. Now, the applicant filed this map. He made reference to it earlier tonight. And if you will look down at the bottom, you will see the scale is 1 inch equals 600 feet. It is not detailed at all. I tried everything I could do to blow it up, and I just simply couldn't. But fortunately, Google came to the rescue, and with Google Earth, we can look at a segment here of Quorum Hill Road. Now, on the 30th, when Mr. White gave his presentation to most of the people in this room, he said that he had sent out notices to, I think he said 70 or more of the people who were most impacted by this quarry proposal. These folks here, these 5 folks here, are not the most impacted by any stretch of the imagination, but they're very significantly impacted because they're right across the street from the quarry, and they just built very nice brick homes within the last few years. You look at the scale of this map, that segment equals 100 feet, so it is a very, very detailed map that I'm showing you here. I took out the applicant's map. Lawyers can actually use rulers, so I used my ruler and my calculator to try and figure out where they were going to put in their quarry road. And it appears that their quarry road is going to go about 115 feet from Quorum Hill Road. I said, let me be conservative, let me draw in that I think I said 125 feet, so there it is. It's a very, very wide road because it's got to accommodate large dump trucks. So there it is, 125 feet there. And then if we measure the distance to those impacted people on Quorum Hill Road, it's actually under 200 feet, but to be conservative, we'll go ahead and say it's 200 feet distance. So if we compare that 200 feet on Quorum Hill Road, and on that part that is not the most impacted part of Quorum Hill Road, you can see that that 200 feet there is 87% less clearance than the maximum we looked at, the conservative maximum of 1,500 square feet, 83% less than the average, and even 60% less than those silly people in Franklin will put up with. So that leads me to conclude and to allege that this site is too small to provide typical environmental buffer zones. And what I mean by typical is what the applicant said in their presentation on the 30th and to you today. Now, why do we need buffer zones? Well, it's because quarries are really noxious places. These are pictures from the Hoover website, and as you can see, this is not pretty stuff to look at. It's not pretty stuff to smell. It's not pretty stuff to hear. And the stuff working on these sites that is very, very large. This is a mining dump truck, and you can see that's a Chevrolet SUV sitting beside it. The tires are twice as tall as the Chevrolet SUV, and the Chevy SUV is not exactly a small car. This next picture is of a Tyrex Titan. And when I asked Wayne Nobles, who Mr. White said was in charge of operations for Hoover, I asked him on the 30th, are you going to have trucks like Tyrex Titans on site? And he said yes. Well, that's a Chevrolet small pickup in the back of a Tyrex Titan. These things are absolutely huge. Once again, we have trouble perceiving these sizes because, we're just looking at a picture. Look at the truck in the bed of that thing. Now, to make some comparisons here, I have selected a smaller truck. It's 30 feet long. We compared to our wonderful Wynwood. 3 of those trucks would cover up Wynwood. Mr. Nobles also said they'd have structures that were 72 feet high, and as you can see, those would tower over Wynwood. That's how big all this stuff is. What we are also worried about is blasting. This is a little video of a blast. I don't know that we're going to get the sound. I hope so, but let's just look at what a blast, this is a quarrying blast now, looks like. And this is in a residential area. I'd actually like to do that again. Would you bear with me? There we go. Let's do that again. And what we're concerned is that these impacts are going to damage our beautiful Castalian Springs and our historic sites. I've run way over the time I've got. These pictures will continue for a couple of minutes, and now Mr. Scott Haynes is going to come up and talk to you about some more things.
Good evening. My name is Scott Haynes. I represent Joe and Barbara Haynes, and I have the privilege of saying they're my parents. I'm here with Mr. Bill Lockwood, and we're going to do this in tandem in order to combine our time and get what we need in the record. First and foremost, Mr. Lockwood is with the firm of Barge Wagner, and he worked on the Lockett development that this BZA is aware of. Mr. Lockwood, would you please tell the board your expertise?
As he said, my name is Bill Lockwood. I'm a landscape architect and land planner with the firm of Barge Wagner, Sumner, and Cannon. I've been with the firm for about 34 years. I've been involved in a number of different projects that involved land use and zoning and permitting issues. As he stated, Lockett, I've been involved with some of the planning for Fairview, Fairway Farms, some of those projects that have been involved in Sumner County and in this area. I've been also involved in some large projects like the convention center, getting permits and other matters for that in downtown Nashville.
One thing I did want to alert you guys to, that we talked to Ms. Denon before, and we were going to move some of our time that was going to be later into this time. Instead of 30 minutes, we're going to use 40 minutes now and then 5 minutes later, if that's okay with the board. Okay. Mr. Lockwood's biographical information is behind tab 8, and you will see it's 15 pages of projects that he has worked on in his career. Mr. Lockwood, are you familiar with rock quarries?
I am familiar with rock quarries, yes.
And what kind of attributes do rock quarries have?
Usually they have, they are providing a service, and they do have blasting. There is a noise attached to that. There is dust. There is dust, other kinds of contaminants which have to be handled, large trucks entering and exiting the site. There are other ancillary uses of asphalt plants and cement plants, those types of things that are associated with rock quarries.
Are any of those consistent with a historic zoning district?
No.
Are any of those consistent with a rural zoning district?
In my opinion, no.
Let's talk about the traffic. Will there be an increase in traffic as a result of this quarry?
Yes, I think that, we did, one of our engineers, Bill Hayes, who is a traffic engineer also, did a quick analysis. He did not do as in-depth a study as Bob Murphy, but he did review that, did look at several other quarries and determined that you would have in the neighborhood of about 100 or about 75 trips or trucks leaving the site per day, and 75 empty trucks coming back as an average. During the more peak times, you would end up with a daily rate of 150 to 200 loaded trucks leaving and exiting the site. One of the things that we have to be careful about, with a loaded truck, which I think they are addressing, is that these trucks take a long time to get up to speed. So therefore, there is a safety issue when they get on the highway. It takes about a quarter of a mile for them to get up to highway speed.
Would this quarry pose significant increases in risk of accidents based on these trucks?
Usually there is some increase in that type of condition because these trucks are moving at a slow pace. A lot of the times that the other people driving will try to past the trucks, whether they're sight distance or not.
Behind tab 4 is the current zoning map. Mr. Lockwood, I'll ask you to turn to page 4, tab 4. And have you examined this zoning map before?
Yes, sir, I have.
And what is the property that's at issue with the rock quarry zone currently?
It's R1A.
And what type of district is an R1A?
It is a general residential district.
If you'll turn to tab 5, is that the R1A district that's in the zoning ordinance that is part of this dispute?
Yes, sir. The intent for a R1A district is general residential, to provide a low-density residential environment for all types of housing units having good access to public water, schools, and other community facilities, but well separated from activities which are incompatible with residential. Uses permitted include single-family and two-family dwellings, mobile homes, subject to the additional regulations contained in 7. Other uses permitted in residential A districts.
And are there uses permitted on appeal?
Yes.
And what type of those uses?
Those uses are cluster residential development, churches and places of worship, schools offering general education courses, railroads and utility rights-of-way, municipal, county, state, or federal uses except storage facilities, cemeteries, privately owned and commercially operated recreation areas and facilities, and similar uses subject to requirements of Article 4, Section 13. Other requirements, clubs, miscellaneous.
Is a rock quarry a use permitted or a use permitted on appeal in an R1A district?
No, it is not.
Is a rock quarry a compatible use for a residential zone district?
In my opinion, no.
Is an asphalt plant a use permitted or a use permitted on appeal in an R1A district?
No.
Is an asphalt plant compatible with a residential zone district?
As shown in the previous information, I would say no.
Is a cement plant a use permitted or a use permitted on appeal in an R1A district?
No.
Is a cement plant compatible with a residential zone district?
No.
Is a rock crushing facility a use permitted or a use permitted on appeal?
No.
And is a rock crushing facility compatible with a residential zone district?
I would say that it would not be.
Now, Mr. White mentioned a use classification system. It's under tab 2, Article 7, pages 40 through 54. If you'll turn to that. I think I've helped you, Mr. Lockwood, by...
Thank you. Use classification.
Are you familiar with this document that
Yes.
Mr. White referenced?
Yes, I have looked at this as a part of the zoning ordinance and the use classification system. It divides up uses within the county under different categories, such as residential activities, community facilities activities, and then agricultural resource production and extractive activities, which calls out for mining and quarrying.
It is in this document a rock quarry permitted in a residential zone district?
Well, it does, this use classification does not go to that condition.
With respect to, on page, I believe it is 53, will you, and 52, will you please describe what type of activities are under an
Intermediate.
intermediate?
Under the intermediate manufacturing activities, one of the activities that is excluded under the intermediate is asphaltic cement plants and cements and/or concrete plants. Where extensive manufacturing activities is used, includes the intermediate activities. So therefore, asphaltic cement plants, cements and/or concrete plants would be permitted in a extensive manufacturing activity.
And is an extensive manufacturing activity normal in a residential area?
It's a separate classification.
Okay. If you will please turn to the comprehensive plan, which